Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University. So today's sort of the launch of Sword and Shield. So the way it works is technically it's now the 15th in like New Zealand, which means that if you set your Switch to New Zealand, because Switches aren't region locked and you have it preloaded, you can download and play the game right now. As of I think like 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, like US Eastern Standard Time. So happy Sword and Shield launch! So with that, I don't think I'm going to get in trouble for talking about any of the Pokemon in the game, any of the Generation 8 Pokemon, but that being said, if you individually do not want to see any of the Generation 8 Pokemon before you see them in the game themselves, click off this video. Feel free to come back once you play the game a little bit, because today we're going to be talking about what my team is going to look like when I play through Sword and Shield. Alright, so first I want to give a little bit of background about how I have built teams historically throughout my Pokemon playing career. So, I started playing in Gen 2 was the first games that I remember playing, and I played Gen 1 pretty much right after. And up until Generation 7, you had to build your team almost revolving around HMs, because if you didn't have a water type, you couldn't navigate, especially like in Gen 3 with too much water, 7 out of 10. You couldn't really navigate. You couldn't do anything unless you had a water type. And then having a flying type just made life infinitely easier because it made it so much easier to get around. With the advent of Ride Pokemon and whatever they call it in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I don't even remember what they call it, but you don't need that anymore. So sort of how I used to build teams was I would have my starter and then I would get the other two types of the starter. So I would always have a fire, water, and grass type. And then I would try to get a flying type just to get flies to make that easier. And then the last two slots were generally kind of up in the air, but I tended to fill them with like an electric type and a psychic type just because those two types are really good, especially early generations. Psychic type is super good. So that was just generally how I built the team. And looking back on the team I used for Generation 7, I just sort of like subconsciously followed that pattern. And like I went through and built a team, you know, not even thinking about this really for Generation 8, and it follows the same pattern pretty much to a T. So let's take a look at what I have. So first up is my starter choice, and if you've seen all the final starter evolutions, you'll know there's been a little bit of controversy, but I have been, and will always be, hashtag Sobble Squad, as you can see back there, Sobble Squad, ride or die. So my starter will be Inteleon, and while I don't really like the design of really any of the final starters. That being, like, I haven't seen them, their actual models. You know, I've just seen like static images on a screen. So everybody thought pretty much the same thing about Greninja. Nobody liked Greninja when it was first revealed, but it's now one of those popular Pokemon by far. It is like easily probably top 5 most popular Pokemon right now. So I think hopefully a similar thing is going to happen with Inteleon. I personally think that out of the 3, it's the best looking, but like I said, I'm not a giant fan of any of the 3, but I like Sobble so much more than I am indifferent about Inteleon, you know what I mean? So I just love Sobble so much. Sobble's still definitely going to be my starter. Next up is my favorite Pokemon that was revealed in all of the official stuff, and that is Roly-Poly. Roly-Poly is literally the cutest Pokemon I've ever seen, and maybe I'm just super biased because I'm a geologist, but, you know, once I saw its evolved forms, first of all, it's super punny, which I can really appreciate, but its evolutions are so cool and also super punny. So, Roly-Poly evolves into Carcoal, which is literally just like a minecart full of coal with a face on it, and that evolves into Colossal, which is essentially Rhyperior, but like on fire, more or less. So that kind of checks the box for our fire type. Now, Fire Rock is not the best typing. It's really good offensively, but it's got 2 really, really common 4x weaknesses with water and ground. So we'll have to try and figure out a way to cover that with the rest of the team. Also, just like a side note, Colossal gets a Gigantamax form. So ideally, you know, not every like Pokemon species that has a Gigantamax form can Gigantamax, so like not every Colossal will be able to Gigantamax. It will be like special individuals of Colossal that will be able to, so hopefully, ideally, that Gigantamaxing individual will be my Colossal, but we'll have to see how you get it throughout the game. I'm not really sure yet. Next up is another Pokemon that as soon as I saw, I'm like, this Pokemon is incredible and I need it on my team. we'll have to see how good its stats are, because it seems sort of like a mid-tier kind of Pokemon, like maybe around the same sort of stat level as like a Sandslash. Although Sandslash can be really good if you use it right, and that Pokemon is Sandaconda. And again, puns. Sandaconda is, first of all, just a great name for a Pokemon, and also just a great idea, just like a sand snake. And just the way it like wraps up its own body into like this little cocoon thing, I think is just a really unique and neat design. You know, like I said, it'll depend a lot on how its stats end up looking. I'm not sure what they are at the moment. But I love its design. Hopefully its move pool is sufficient enough to make it viable, at least like on an in-game team. Fourth on the list, we have a Pokemon that as soon as I saw its baby form, I was like, that Pokemon is so freaking cute. I need it on my team. Once I saw what it evolved into, I like lost my mind. And that Pokemon is Caparaja. I've been saying for years, literally years, that we need more elephant Pokemon. Right now, all we had before Generation 8 was Donphan and Phanpy, and I guess you could sort of argue Mamoswine, even though it's technically like a pig. But we've needed more elephant Pokemon, because as cool as Donphan and Phanpy are, they're some of my favorite Pokemon, like don't get me wrong, but we needed more elephant Pokemon. And Caparaja is incredible. It's just giant elephant with like metal tusks, and its trunk is like a scoop, which I think is just, again, like a super great design. I think there's only been like a handful of Pokemon in this generation that I haven't been a fan of their design, and weirdly it's kind of been the starters. But overall, like, this generation has been incredible, and Caparaja is no exception. And Steel is just an incredible typing, especially depending on how early you get it in the game. Caparaja could be like game-breaking if you get it early enough. So hopefully that will be the case. Like usual, the last two spots are kind of a toss-up. I haven't picked my grass type yet, and I'll get to that in a second. But being a paleontologist by, you know, training, that's what I'm going to graduate school for, and with the really unique way that they're treating the fossil Pokemon in this generation, I thought I really need a fossil Pokemon on this team. So I kind of narrowed it down to two options. So I've noticed so far that at least two of the members are weak to water, and Inteleon isn't a great water type resist, because I'm assuming it's going to be pretty frail, similar in nature to like Greninja. So I needed like a proper water resist. So that would bring me to Dracozolt, which is the electric type top and dragon type bottom fossil Pokemon. So it's electric dragon. Amazing typing, especially if you're using it as a water type counter, because obviously electric is super effective and dragon resists. So just a really unique type combination that isn't seen other than, I believe Zekrom is the only other electric dragon type Pokemon up until this point. And with an amazing typing like that, it'll be really difficult to not put this on my team. But the other option would be Arctozolt, which is an ice electric type. And while it doesn't resist water, ice electric is a completely unique typing and an incredible offensive typing. That being said, ice is a really bad defensive typing, and electric's okay with it only having one weakness. But at least it's something that's super effective to water. And there's also sort of a third option that's not as likely, which is Dragapult, which is assumed to be this region's pseudo-legendary Pokemon, which is Ghost Dragon. Another water resist. It'll depend how late in the game you get it, but I'm leaning more toward Dracozolt, then Arctozolt, then Dragapult. And the last spot is also sort of a three-way toss-up. So looking through the Pokemon, either the new Pokemon or the old Pokemon that have been confirmed to be in the game, I noticed that there's not that many really good grass types. You know, there are some typical standbys like Ferrothorn, but like Ferrothorn's not that easy to use in-game just because it doesn't hit very hard and it's really slow. So as for more offensive or more well-rounded, I guess, grass types, there really wasn't that many until they showed what is it, Flapple and Appleton, the split evolution of Applin, which are grass dragon types. And so it'll kind of depend, this one, if I do end up with the previous slot getting Arctozolt, the ice electric type, I'll probably end up getting Appleton, just because I like that it is more bulky, but also a dragon type, so it can most likely also deal some kind of damage, unlike Ferrothorn. as well as being a better water resist. But if I end up not going with a dragon type for that previous slot, I'll probably end up picking Roserade, which is a Pokemon that I've never really used before in like any capacity. Like I used Rosalia like for a little while until I realized how bad it was, like the first time I played through Generation 3. But it was something that's like, it's a pretty good Pokemon. You know, it's got pretty high special attack, pretty high special defense, and if you can get it with its hidden ability Technician, if you give it hidden power, it can be a really powerful Pokemon on your team. And then there's also sort of an honorable mention, depending on its stats. So, if you have save data from Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee on your Switch, you can sort of use that to get a Pikachu or an Eevee that can Gigantamax on your team. So if it's just a regular Pikachu, then I'll probably not use it. But if it's got the same stats as the starter Pikachu in Let's Go, because I had Let's Go Pikachu and I didn't end up getting Let's Go Eevee. But if it has the same stats as the starter Pikachu in Let's Go Pikachu, I might consider using that because its stats are like kind of ridiculous. Its speed gets like a 30-point buff, and I think both of its attacks get like a 40-point buff compared to normal Pikachu. So if that's the case, it's at least a consideration for maybe early game, because I'm assuming you get it relatively early if you just have the save data on your Switch. I'm not really sure yet. I haven't gotten that far in the game. Alright, so just to wrap things up, a TLDR for the team. First up, we've got our starter, Inteleon. Secondly, we've got our fire type, the best boy, Roly-Coly, or Colossal when it evolves. Then we've got Sandaconda, one of the best names of any Pokemon I've ever heard. Then we have Caparaja, the metal elephant. Then we have a toss-up mostly between Dracozolt and Arctozolt, the two of the possible 4 fossil combinations, and then either Roserade or Appletun, depending on how that slot goes. So let me know your thoughts on my team and what Pokemon you're interested in using. There's so many good options. Like I said a couple times in this video, there's almost no bad options, at least aesthetically and type combination wise, that I've seen so far. Obviously there's a lot of really cool new forms of older Pokemon. There are new evolutions of older Pokemon. So like if you want to use Sirfetch'd, if you want to use Obstagoon, if you want to use Galarian Weezing, like that's totally understandable. Those Pokemon look phenomenal. I could not be more excited for this game. And, you know, I thought I was excited for Sun and Moon. This blows Sun and Moon out of the water, in my opinion. So, like I said, let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Pallet_U to keep up on all things Pokemon science. If you're feeling generous and you feel like this channel is worthy of it, feel free to become a patron on Patreon, the link to which will be down in the description below as well. And as always, there's a time and place for everything.